while I was repairing my dad's car all day. He came over with my children and said, "Your father obeys all commands. He's a good dog." Then my mom shouted, "Well, at least he earned his living for this week." I just stopped, took the kids, and left while they were laughing. Yesterday, my dad came and demanded that I finish, but I cut him off. And then I spent that whole Saturday under the hood of my dad's Buick. And let me tell you, it wasn't just an oil change. It was a mess. A complete engine teardown. Vacuum leaks. Shot timing belts. Gaskets like paper. He'd been letting the car rot for years. And now it was suddenly urgent. Called me Thursday night like, "Hey, Ethan, do you think you could come over and help me with the car this weekend?" No, please. No context. I had plans with the kids, but I adapted like I always do. I brought my own tools, drove 30 miles to get there, and had been working since morning. Not a single break. No water offered. No one to bring me lunch. Just me, my toolbox, and an engine that clearly wanted to die. Around 4, 0 inches the afternoon, I hear the backyard gate creak open. I wipe the sweat from my face and see Lily and Jack coming toward me. They are smiling, excited, which usually makes my day better. But behind them was my dad, walking with that smug, slow stride like he was about to reveal some kind of wisdom the world had been waiting for. He didn't say hello. He didn't even ask how things were going. He just stood there looking over the car and said it like it was the punchline to a joke that everyone else was in on but me. "Your dad obeys all commands. He's a good dog." It hung in the air for a second, and then they laughed. My mother laughed from the porch. Even my kids laughed. Kind of, because they thought it was just a silly joke. They didn't understand what he was saying. Then my mom chimed in without even looking up from her magazine. "Well, at least he earned his keep this week." I remember just staring at her. Not angry, not embarrassed, just drained. Like something inside me had just quietly shut off. I put the wrench back in the toolbox, closed it, called Lily and Jack, and we left. No one stopped me. No one asked why, and no one apologized later. I just sat in the garage that night, staring at my own car for hours. Something about what he said kept echoing. It wasn't just a jab. It was how he saw me. All these years, I thought I was helping the family, being a good son. But to him, I was just a tool, something obedient, disposable. I didn't hear from them all week. Not a word. Until yesterday. He showed up just like that. Didn't call, didn't text, just walked into my garage while I was fixing the washer valve. Said he needed me to come back and finish the job. No shame, no acknowledgement, nothing. Just stood there like he still had authority over me. "The car is still not running." "You didn't finish," he said. I didn't even look up. Told him I wasn't coming. Was never going to touch that damn Buick again. He kept talking as if I hadn't said anything. Going on. About how it was half done, and how I had an obligation to finish what I started. I cut him off, told him straight out, "I'm not your mechanic. I'm not your anything. If he wanted someone to fix it, he could pay out of his own pocket like everybody else. He wasn't going to use me anymore." He laughed loudly. He looked over at Jack, who was sitting on the living room couch, and said, "I guess your dad still thinks pouting gets him out of responsibility." What a lesson. That was it. I told him to get out. No yelling, just cold and simple. Get out and don't come back. He looked surprised, like the concept of me saying no was foreign to him. Then he left. Not a word. Didn't even close the door behind him. I stood there for a long time after that, just holding the screwdriver, thinking. I realized I wasn't just done with the car. I was done with everything. The silence after I kicked him out didn't last long. The next morning, I got a voicemail from my mother. Just her voice, annoyed even before she said anything real. "You need to grow up, Ethan. This car is your father's pride and joy, and you storming off like a teenage brat isn't helping anyone. We're family, not your enemy." She ended with, "At least your brother has a backbone." I didn't call her back. I didn't answer when she called again that night or the next day. Then came the texts. First from my sister Rachel. Why are you being so dramatic? It was a joke. You always overreact. Then my cousin, then my mom again. But not one of them asked me how I felt standing there being mocked in front of my own children. Not one of them thought that maybe I'd had enough. Only one person didn't speak up, my Aunt Sharon. She texted me 3 words that day, nothing else. I understand everything. It was the first time I had smiled in a week. What really broke my heart happened 2 days later. Jack came back from a weekend at my ex's house and told me that my dad had stopped by to see them. He said he told them I was acting like a spoiled teenager throwing a temper tantrum, and that I had finally proven I don't have what it takes to be a man. Jack asked me what he meant. I didn't have an answer, not one I wanted to give to my son. So, I did something I'd never done before. I blocked both of my parents' phone numbers. Then, I texted them first. Just one last message before the silence. You don't get to humiliate me and then play the victim. You made your choice. Now live with it. That's when things started to turn around. Out of nowhere, I got a call from a friend of a friend who heard I was handy with cars and appliances. He said he needed help flipping some used trucks for resale and couldn't find reliable help. It paid well, really well. I made more in 2 weeks than I had made the whole month before. I got so busy that I had to turn down a gig. That's when it started to click for me. I didn't need their approval, or their favors, or their scraps. I'd been giving them my time and energy like it was worthless. And the second I stopped, I started building something that was actually mine. Then came the real test, 3 weeks after I cut them off. My mother called from another number. I almost didn't answer, but I did. Her voice was calmer this time. Your father's transmission is broken. We're stuck. We can't afford to fix it now. She didn't say please. She just expected me to say yes. I asked her if she remembered what she said the last time I was at her house. She got quiet. Then she said, "That was just your father joking. You took it too personally." I told her no. No? She repeated, as if she never heard the word before. "You'll figure it out," I said. "You always do, don't you? After all, you said I only earned my keep this week. Maybe it's somebody else's turn." She hung up. I stood there in the kitchen for a second, just letting it sink in. This was the first time in my life that I had said no to my parents when they really needed something, and it felt right. After that, I didn't hear from them for almost a month. I figured they'd probably scraped together some money, guilted my sister into helping out, or maybe begged a neighbor. Honestly, I didn't care. I stopped checking. I stopped wondering. I stopped giving them space in my head. And in that time, everything just sped up for me. The truck flip job turned into a steady side hustle. A guy named Reggie, who ran a used car lot in town, heard about my work and offered me a deal, 5 cars a month, good pay, cash, upfront if I stayed reliable. I rented a small space on the outskirts of town, got some more tools, even hired a teenager from my neighborhood to work part-time. Business cards, website, Instagram, things I'd never bothered with before. I named the shop after my kids' initials. It felt like I was finally doing something that was mine, not borrowed or owed. Then came the family barbecues. Rachel decided to have one at her house and texted me like nothing happened. "You're coming, right? Don't make it weird." I told her I had work. "So, you're still playing the victim? You should be over it by now." I ignored that too. 2 days later, Aunt Sharon showed up at my shop with a casserole and an annoying smile. She sat on a paint bucket while I rotated a tire and said, "They kept talking about you at the barbecue. Said you've changed. Said you were cold now." I didn't say anything, she added. "Your dad called you a disappointment in front of the grandchildren. Said you got a little money and forgot where you came from." That hit home. I looked at her and asked, "Did anyone say anything?" She sighed. Rachel changed the subject. "Your mother poured another drink. That was about it." Then she looked me in the eye and said, "But I told them I was proud of you. That one was different too." A few more weeks went by, and I got used to the silence. It was as if I'd lived under noise all my life, and suddenly it stopped. No guilt, no emotional debt hanging over my head. Just me, my work, and my kids. We started fishing again. I helped Jack build a wooden go-kart from scratch. Lily drew me a picture that said, "Best dad in the world," and taped it to the refrigerator. Of course, the piece didn't last. Last Thursday, my dad showed up again. Not at the store this time, at my house. I opened the door, and he looked distant. Not angry, not smug, just tired. He said they needed help. The furnace went out. Middle of January. Pipes froze. Couldn't afford a replacement. He even offered to pay me this time. "You're good at this, Ethan. Always have been. Thought maybe you'd help out for old time's sake." I asked him why he thought I'd say yes. He said, "Because family helps family. And you're not that cruel." I laughed in his face. I couldn't help it. Cruel? You called me a dog in front of my children. You embarrassed me and didn't blink. You mocked me to their faces. He had the nerve to say, "That's the way I talk. You know that." I stepped back and shut the door behind him. I didn't even wait for an answer. I expected silence after I slammed the door in his face, but I should have known better. People like my dad don't shut up. They regroup, they reload, they come back louder. 2 days later, I was in the shop under a lifted Tacoma when Rachel called. I let it ring, then figured it was probably about the kids or something serious, so I picked up. "Big mistake. You really told them to freeze?" she said. "No hello, no hello, just fire." I remained silent. "Mom's sleeping in the basement with 2 space heaters, Ethan. Dad wears gloves inside. They're old." "What the hell is wrong with you?" "They weren't old when they called me a dog," she snorted. "That again? You're still making that joke?" "You were always soft." It landed harder than I expected. Maybe because it wasn't the first time I'd heard it. My dad used to say it when I wouldn't wrestle, when I wouldn't get into fights at school, when I cried after he left me at a bus stop once just to toughen me up. I said, "You humiliated me in front of my kids." Rachel said, "Grow up. Everybody gets picked on. Jesus, Ethan, they gave you everything, and now you act like you're an orphan with a grudge." I wanted to ask what exactly they'd given me because all I remember growing up was fixing things they broke and apologizing for things they said. Instead, I said, "I don't owe them any warmth." "You're disgusting," she said. Click. I stared at my phone for a full minute. Then I threw it over the counter and got back under the truck. That night, Sharon texted me. She asked me to talk to you. I said no. I told him it was funny how the boy they laughed at was the only one who could save them. That one sat sweetly in my chest. She always got it. But that didn't stop the parade. 2 days later, my dad's buddy from the VFW showed up at the store, guy named Barry. Used to tell me stupid jokes when I was a kid. He strolled in like he owned the place, hands in his pockets. "Your old man's got pneumonia now," he said casually. "The furnace hasn't worked for weeks. Your mother's sleeping in shifts. People are starting to talk." I didn't say anything. He tilted his head. "Are you really going to let your own parents live like this because of some hurt feelings?" I finally looked up. "Tell them to call someone who doesn't need to be called a good dog to help." He shook his head as if I'd lost it. "You used to be better than this." I said, "No, I used to be quieter." He left without another word. Later that night, I got a text from my cousin Dylan. He said they had started a family group chat to talk about my behavior. Apparently, my dad had told everyone that I refused to help his sick old hands, and my mom said I was acting like a vengeful teenager with a god complex. They left out the part where they mocked me in front of my kids. Funny how that part always gets left out. Meanwhile, my business was exploding. Reggie's contract turned out to be a goldmine. Steady work, big pay, word-of-mouth referrals pouring in. I was turning people away by the second week. Hired another guy, a retired vet named Sean. Quiet, steady, loyal as hell. First day on the job, he looked around and said, "There's something different about this place." He was right. It did. Jack and Lily came to visit more often. Jack helped me fix an ATV, and I let him drive it around the back lot. He kept saying, "I can't believe it's yours, Dad." And every time he said it, I felt another brick being laid under my feet. Something solid. Something no one gave me. Something I built. Then, another call again from Rachel. "You won," she said. I blinked. "What?" "Dad's in the hospital. Pneumonia, like Barry said." Mom's panicking. "She said you weren't welcome at the hospital, but that she hoped your heart will grow back before the funeral." Her words. I didn't say anything. Then Rachel added, "We all see what this is now. It's revenge, isn't it?" Finally, I spoke. "Call it what you want. I call it boundaries." She mumbled something under her breath and hung up. I looked up at the ceiling of my garage. The same ceiling I had started working under 6 months ago, when I was just doing favors and getting laughed at for them. Now I had a business, a reputation, a waiting list, and my kids thought I was a freaking superhero. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. Word of the hospital spread quickly. By noon the next day, I had 4 missed calls from extended family, 2 from old neighbors, and 1 from a former teacher who apparently still kept tabs on everyone in town, all with some version of the same message. "Whatever's going on, Ethan, this isn't the way." But they didn't know the way. Not the real way. Not the years of jokes at my expense, the eye rolls, the backhanded compliments, the free labor I gave like a fool just to hear you do good and still never hear it. Dad didn't die, by the way. The pneumonia was severe, but they caught it. He was discharged 3 days later. Weak, but upright. My mom called Aunt Sharon from the hospital parking lot and said, "Well, I hope Ethan's happy now. He got what he wanted. He broke his father." Aunt Sharon didn't even seem to blink. She just said, "He didn't break anything. He just stopped fixing it." I loved her for that. But the family didn't let it go. They planned a reunion, a meeting, an intervention. Really? Rachel organized it. She texted me the address, said it would mean a lot if I came, that maybe we could all find common ground. I knew what it was, a trap. But I went anyway. Not for her, for me. It was in their backyard, lawn chairs in a circle, tables of lemonade and potato salad like a 4th of July barbecue. But the energy was all wrong. My dad was there wearing a coat. Even though it was warm, he didn't look at me. My mom sat next to him, arms folded, face carved in stone. The rest of them sat and waited, as if I was about to testify. "I didn't sit," Rachel started. She said something about wounds and misunderstandings and how families go through hard times and how forgiveness heals. Then my dad spoke. His voice was raspier than usual, probably from the hospital, but not softer. "You think you're better than us now, don't you? Because you have a little garage and some customers." "I didn't say anything," he went on. "You forget who raised you? Who let you live under his roof? Who taught you how to turn a wrench?" That made me laugh. "You taught me how to turn a wrench because you were too cheap to pay a mechanic. Let's not sugarcoat it." He stood up. "You're ungrateful." I looked around the circle, all of them watching me, waiting to see if I'd crack. I said, "I was your errand boy, your free labor, your punchline, and now I'm something you can't control, and that scares the hell out of you." My mother scoffed. "We gave you everything." "No," I said. "You took it all, and when I stopped giving it to you, you all lost your minds." Rachel jumped in. "This isn't helping." I looked straight at her. "No, but it's honest." I turned to leave. My dad called out, "You'll regret this when you're older. When your kids talk to you like that. That's dumb. Not because he was right, but because he was trying to use my kids against me again." I didn't look back. 2 days later, Lily had a school project on family businesses. She chose my business, drew it in crayon, labeled everything, even wrote, "My dad is the boss and no one laughs at him around here." That picture still sits on my desk. I framed it because it's true, and because every time I look at it, it reminds me of the difference between being a servant and being a father. It had been a little over 2 months since the reunion in the backyard. No phone calls, no voicemails, no updates. The family group chat must have quietly shifted to talking about anything but me. Even Rachel went quiet. I assumed they finally realized I wasn't bluffing, that the door they'd been slamming in my face had finally swung back the other way and closed behind them. But silence always hides something. I just didn't know what yet. The shop was buzzing. We'd picked up 2 more clients, both commercial, constant work on vans, and construction trucks. Jack was practically my weekend apprentice. Sean called him the junior foreman, and Jack was starting to take it seriously. Lily painted a mural on one of the inside walls, a big cartoon wrench with a cape and the words Super Fixers underneath. Then came the phone call. Not from my parents, not from Rachel. It was Aunt Sharon. They lost the house, Ethan. The bank took it last week. I didn't want to be the one to tell you, but I figured you'd hear it anyway. I leaned against the wall of the shop and said nothing. She went on. They're staying at that awful motel across from the old grain elevator. You know the one. No heat in half the rooms. The Buick's been towed too, I think. How did that happen? Default, property taxes, missed mortgage payments. They're telling people it's just a temporary downsizing, but Debbie next door told me they got the final notice months ago. They just didn't say anything. There was a pause. Then she added, Your mom says this is all because you turned your back on them. Your father tells people his son has money, but no soul now. That stung for half a second. Then I remembered the look in Lily's eyes when I hung her drawing in the store. And I remembered how it felt to be laughed at like a dog doing tricks. I thanked Aunt Sharon and hung up. I wasn't going to do anything. I meant it. I thought the story was over. But then a strange thing happened. 3 days later, I got a call from a local garage owner named Mason. He was a guy I knew through Reggie's network, who ran a repair shop a few miles away from the dealership. He said, Hey, this is random, but did you ever fix up a dark green '98 Buick? Rusty panels, smoked out taillight? My chest tightened a little. Why? It showed up here last night. Some guy dumped it and asked for a quote to get it running. Said it was sentimental. We ran the plates before we towed it, and your name came up on a repair history from a few years back. Thought it might be stolen. It wasn't stolen. They were trying to fix it again. That rusted-out ghost of a car. The one I'd spent years pulling back from the brink. The one that was never worth saving. It had found its way back to me. Or maybe they used it as bait. Maybe they were hoping I'd hear about it, that I'd show up like I used to. Maybe they wanted to see if I'd crack. I didn't. But the thoughts stayed in my head, that they'd rather drag a dying car through town than call me and tell me we were wrong. The next week, Rachel came by the shop. I was locking up. Jack was inside sweeping the floors. She didn't even say hello, just stood by her car. They got nothing, Ethan. He's coughing again. And Mom fell in that motel bathroom twice this week. There's mold. The power goes off at night. I waited. She looked me in the eye. You win. They're broken. You got what you wanted. This part made me laugh because what I wanted was never to see her fall. What I wanted was some respect. A little decency. You still don't get it, I said. She snapped back. So what's the plan? You just going to let her rot in that dump? No. I made them feel what I felt every time they laughed and told me I was only useful when I was working. They wanted obedience. They got silence. She shook her head, said something I didn't catch, and drove off. I went back inside. Jack handed me the broom and asked who it was. Just someone who never saw the truth until it was too late. Then he asked, Are we still going fishing tomorrow? Yep, and we did. The next morning, Lily handed me another drawing. This one had all 3 of us outside the garage. She drew herself holding a sign that said, My dad helps people who deserve it. I framed that one too, because she gets it better than they ever did. A week later, I was closing up when Sean came into the office holding an envelope. This got dropped off at the front desk. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in shaky handwriting. I already knew who it was from before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. My dad's handwriting. Ethan, I know you're angry. I know you think we treated you badly. Maybe we did, maybe we didn't. But things have gotten harder than I expected. I'm tired. Your mother is tired. If you ever decide you want to talk, I'll listen. Dad, that was it. No apology. No acknowledgement. No mention of calling me a dog. No mention of the years of free labor. Just a vague maybe and an invitation to pretend everything had happened to both of us equally. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. That night, Sharon called. Did you get the letter? I laughed. Of course you know about the letter. She laughed too. Your mother made him write it. That didn't surprise me. Did she make him mean it? I asked. Sharon went quiet. No, I don't think so. The next month passed faster than any month I could remember. Business kept growing. We signed another commercial contract. Sean started handling estimates. Jack learned how to change brake pads. Lily spent Saturdays drawing logos and cartoons for the waiting area. Somewhere along the way, the shop stopped feeling like a business and started feeling like a home. Then, one afternoon, I got another call from Sharon. Her voice sounded different. Softer. Ethan, your father asked about you today. I waited. He said he drove by the shop. I frowned. What? He parked across the street for almost an hour. Just watched. That hit me harder than I expected. What did he say? She took a breath. He said, looks like he built something good. For a moment, I didn't know what to do with that. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. But it was the first honest thing I'd heard from him in years. I walked out into the garage and watched Jack laughing with Sean near one of the lifts. I looked at Lily's mural on the wall. I looked at the customers waiting for repairs, the tools, the signs, the business I built with my own hands. Maybe my father finally saw it. Maybe he didn't. Either way, for the first time in my life, it didn't matter. A week later, I was closing up when Sean came into the office holding an envelope. This got dropped off at the front desk. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in shaky handwriting. I already knew who it was from before I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper. My dad's handwriting. Ethan, I know you're angry. I know you think we treated you badly. Maybe we did. Maybe we didn't. But things have gotten harder than I expected. I'm tired. Your mother is tired. If you ever decide you want to talk, I'll listen. Dad, that was it. No apology. No acknowledgement. No mention of calling me a dog. No mention of the years of free labor. Just a vague maybe, and an invitation to pretend everything had happened to both of us equally. I folded the letter and put it in my desk drawer. That night, Sharon called. Did you get the letter? I laughed. Of course you know about the letter. She laughed too. Your mother made him write it. That didn't surprise me. Did she make him mean it? I asked. Sharon went quiet. No, I don't think so. The next month passed faster than any month I could remember. Business kept growing. We signed another commercial contract. Sean started handling estimates. Jack learned how to change brake pads. Lily spent Saturdays drawing logos and cartoons for the waiting area. Somewhere along the way, the shop stopped feeling like a business and started feeling like a home. Then one afternoon, I got another call from Sharon. Her voice sounded different, softer. Ethan, your father asked about you today. I waited. He said he drove by the shop. I frowned. What? He parked across the street for almost an hour. Just watched. That hit me harder than I expected. What did he say? She took a breath. He said, looks like he built something good. For a moment, I didn't know what to do with that. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even close. but it was the first honest thing I'd heard from him in years. I walked out into the garage and watched Jack laughing with Sean near one of the lifts. I looked at Lily's mural on the wall. I looked at the customers waiting for repairs, the tools, the signs, the business I built with my own hands. Maybe my father finally saw it. Maybe he didn't. Either way, for the first time in my life, it didn't matter.